Yes, Richard, what do you have to say? I allowed him sufficient time because they are raising the opposition a lot more.
No.
Even though they are civil society, we have heard from the CDDs, Abrampa, and a few others. Yes.
Well, Samson, I have listened to the conversation, and earlier on, I just know about the individual remotely. The fact that he has some affinity with the MPP, which is the basis for all of this. I think that yes, when you're looking at the issue of maybe people being reasonably disassociated from political parties and all of that, you can make the point. I don't disagree with that. But what I find difficult is the seeming impression being created that our electoral system is so vulnerable, is so, it's not as rigorous as it should be, such that the appointment of an individual on that board really just changes the game for NDC. It's not. Whilst I grant all of the other concerns, what is material, what is consequential for us to talk about is the health and the systems we have built. In this country, it was said, and I think that Phyllis agrees, that the winning of election in this country occurs at the polling station. And so that the processes are in place to make our electoral system even independent from those who manage it, such that you and I who have stake in the elections that are coming up or subsequent ones, we have what it takes to police the system, independent of the individuals who are there. And so I don't see where we then belabor the point and say because of that something uncharacteristic has happened.
But that position of the president is a debatable one, isn't it? And I just, immediately I heard it, I went to pick Mabel Akubanase's book, Pink Sheets. After the election petition, she wrote a book, and the CJ then, Georgina Wood, wrote a foreword. You know, she empaneled the court to hear that petition. And the foreword, this is what she wrote, it's instructive. First, she's quoting Joseph Stalin, and he says, quote, "The people who cast the votes don't decide an election. The people who count the votes do," end quote. And she says, as I write this, I reflect over this quote by the Soviet legend. From one perspective, it seems to me the burden of deciding who wins an election lies on election officials. Equally persuasive is a perspective which suggests that it is the voter that decides an election. Could it be one or the other? Or could it be both? Whither are we drifting? At rock bottom, however we look at it, this quote seems to sum up the issues that bog our minds on elections and electioneering activities in Ghana. Do you agree with this or you don't?
Well, it's a view expressed, right? I wouldn't necessarily disagree or agree with it. The point.
But you agree with the president?
Well, I'm just saying that if you look at the issues before us, and you know that there is the appearance that, okay, well, independence and all of that, yes. So once you appoint the individual and he goes there, his work becomes public. There isn't any way where you can hear or you see that Akufo-Addo tells him go and do this and he goes to do that. Everything he does will be held to public scrutiny, and I think that the NDC will not miss the opportunity to do so. What I think is problematic is the NDC's own constant act of shooting themselves in the foot. Because you yourself have deselected yourself from going to IPAC to begin with. So when decisions are made, then you stand outside and you are blaming everybody that, well, somehow you cannot be part of, or you are not part of the decision, and therefore you go to Parliament to relitigate a decision or discussion or an agreement that has passed at IPAC. So it's the NDC that is doing this to themselves. To say that we have an institution that relatively Constitution granted the independence of that institution, it is for us as interest stakeholders to make sure that we hold the system to function the way it ought to function. Okay. Now, you can put me as EC, but then I cannot, in broad daylight, say go and have this thing skewed in favor of the MP.
Can you be independent?
Yes.
If something is going wrong, your party will call you.
Yeah.
They'll say, look, Richard, what's going on? You ought to check this. And you will listen to your party, won't you?
But
that's the temptation.
But you see, there's an integrity dimension to all of these. And so if that was possible, I'm sure that Madame Charlotte Osei could have listened to calls that may have gone to her whatever time to declare the election for the NDC. The thing is such that we have to come and to have confidence in the systems.
Even though Charlotte Osei couldn't do that, do you remember how vehemently you fought her? And people believe up to today that she ought to have been there, but for, a grand agenda to remove her, which was successful.
Well, I don't see any grand agenda. I can agree with our opposition of her. Also, it's a function of what a democracy is, and in fact has become a legacy of the growth of our process. Because we did that, and we realized that, okay, well, that really is not the outcome. Because when it mattered and Ghanaians made the choice, the counting of it was according to the structures that we put together. So nobody can actually do anything untoward. So that's the confidence they must have, that we all are building a democracy and we are growing to a certain point. So where we have gotten to, the NDC should not be entertaining that fear. They should go to IPAC. They should engage the conversation to say that where they don't understand something, that conversation will be addressed at IPAC. So everybody is comfortable.
So ask yourself, what Richard and the NPP would have been doing if we turned the table and put the NDC in power and put you in opposition. And this appointment was made. You just, a while ago, you said maybe the appearance, and that actually reminds me of a scripture which says, avoid all appearances of evil. 1 Thessalonians somewhere. So it's like conflict of interest. In law, we say avoiding the appearances of it is as important as the actual of it. What would you have been doing? What would you have been saying if the situation was turned around?
Samson, when, and I think up until she left office and was demonstrating recently, the former Chief Justice was seen as a relative of the president and therefore it was bad that she was appointed. But just recently we saw that on a principle basis she can depart, and she departed. So let's not carry this group position to say that, because look, we are all friends. In this country, people know people, right? A minute ago, Honorable Ricky Hagan was talking about people knowing people across the aisle. Is that supposed to prevent us from working? Or so therefore people would sell their integrity and not do what is right? No, it's a matter of concern. You can express that. You make note of it. Society takes account of it that, yes, we see that this person has some leanings towards this political party. But what is healthy that we must encourage is that the system must be policed to work. So if I were the NDC, I would focus my attention on how we strengthen the electoral system, which includes that I go to IPAC. I don't continue to sit outside. So we engage together to mold the system, and so that we can get the outcome.
So Professor Piaget,